Injuries and deaths suddenly skyrocketed. A visit to an orthopaedic centre in Kabul illustrates the human cost of 23 years of war in one of the world's poorest nations. In just the past 12 years in Afghanistan, Alberto Cairo has seen 5 governments survive 2 civil wars and helped countless people disabled by landmines and rockets to build their lives. Through the bloody warlord era after the Soviet withdrawal and the austere years of Taliban rule, the flamboyant Italian has worked as head of the International Committee of the Red Cross Orthopaedic Project, earning the name Mother Teresa of Kabul. His centre treats around 300 invalids a day, 80% of them landmine victims, and often treatment, training and counselling to help them reintegrate into society. Cairo and his staff encourage their patients to learn to walk again with prostheses and go on with their lives, not to think that their lives are over, as so many do. Before the bombing, around 90 people a month were killed or maimed by landmines. The number now stands at over 550. Half the victims die before reaching what few medical facilities still exist, so in reality, these patients are the lucky ones. Since it began in Kabul in 1988, the International Committee of the Red Cross Orthopaedic Project has also opened centres in Herat, Mazar-e-Sharif, Jalalabad, Gulbahar and Faizabad. The Kabul centre operated during the decade-long Soviet occupation, when most of the minefields were first laid out, and continued its work through the Taliban era, not least because of some of its patients were Taliban, although men had to be strictly segregated from women. As well as manufacturing and fitting prosthetic limbs, the centre provides jobs in its workshops and rehabilitation rooms to disabled people. According to Cairo, himself a former lawyer from Turin who retrained as a physiotherapist to join the Red Cross project, the centre only employs disabled people as a form of positive discrimination. He believes it shows everyone that disabled people can work as well as their able-bodied countrymen and women. The Taliban eventually forced Cairo to leave Kabul a few days after the September 11th attacks on the United States, but he was back by the end of November, a few days after the Taliban fell. Cairo breathed a sigh of relief when a new interim government under Hamid Karzai was sworn in soon after that, with a mandate to rebuild the nation with a massive injection of international aid. The World Bank recently estimated that Afghanistan needed at least $9 billion to rebuild its economy and basic infrastructure. Following a year of terrorism, war and devastating natural disasters, the British Red Cross is aiming to raise more funds to be used immediately for disaster situations. Not all disasters receive international press, limiting the capacity for charities to raise money. Through their new Disaster Fund initiative, the British Red Cross hopes to be able to respond quickly to anyone in need around the globe. Recently, for example, an earthquake hit southern Peru, and 60,000 people were left homeless. It didn't get much news coverage, but it did devastate an entire community. Within 48 hours, 50,000 blankets were sent from the British Red Cross to the Peruvian Red Cross to support those affected. With over 130 years of experience, the British Red Cross plays an important role on the world stage and continues to work under 2 fundamental principles: neutrality and humanity. African dance coupled with step aerobics is helping Deborah Bono's students dance their way to health and fitness. Her husband Gene provides the beat for the class. It's his drumming, along with her endless energy, that drives these women to reach new aerobic highs. Bono started teaching the class about 5 years ago, when a client asked her to come up with something a little different. She used a dance background to design Afro-Caribbean step. Its popularity draws people from all cultures and nationalities. The couple have even produced 2 workout tapes to promote their exercise system around the world, in the hopes that it will be enjoyed by people in their living rooms and in the gyms. And speaking of gyms, a German doctor had borrowed some exercise equipment and modified it to treat injuries and other physical disorders. The underwater bicycle dramatically reduces rehabilitation time for patients with leg injuries. Martin Hartkop is one of Dr. Van Katten's patients. He recently underwent surgery for tearing his cruciate ligament while playing basketball. The ligaments hold the knees in place, providing stability and flexibility. Conventional rehabilitation takes about 14 weeks, and hydrotherapy is only introduced in the later stages. Patients are normally able to straighten their knees after 10 weeks, but studies show that people training on the underwater bicycle could flex their legs after just 6 weeks. The secret lies in exercising in a weightless environment. In other sports news, Impact Leisure International has developed a new ski slope surface, which will give skiers a softer, easier landing. The injury-free invention, known as Playgrass, is made of 2 layers of geotextile material and is gap-free, which means fingers and thumbs can't get trapped in a fall. The company has already had considerable interest from Mexico, the Far East, and several European countries, including Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Those who've already tried the new slopes claim the surface offers more turning ability and is even more slippery than normal skiing, but without the bruising. Playgrass is an ideal surface for beginners who can be somewhat apprehensive about flying down a snow-capped peak, while seasoned skiers tend to be more adventurous on the man-made surface, as they're less likely to hurt themselves. The company has had particular interest from America, where personal injury concerns have until now stopped the development of the dry ski slope industry. And finally, in sports medicine, the illegal use of performance-enhancing drugs has taken a dangerous turn, thanks to gene therapy. It seems that winning is in the genes after all. Scientists at University College London studying cardiovascular genetics have identified the first 7 genes associated with human performance. While their work is being designed to help those with serious illness, it's feared it could be illegally used by athletes. By understanding how these sporting genes work in regulating performance, opportunists might find pharmaceutical ways of enhancing the body, much like the human hormone EPO was copied and used by cyclists to enhance their strength, stamina, and riding ability. Research in this field is just getting started, so matching the right genes to types of performance is still a long way off. At some point, though, it could lead to the arrival of gene drugs, which would be very difficult to detect.
The state of our health, something we strive to improve and maintain, but sometimes inadvertently destroy. Universally, it's vitally important. The Germans have a universal word for it. Gesundheit.
In today's edition, the future has arrived at a hospital in Mexico City where surgeons have teamed up with Zeus, a surgical robot, to remove abdominal tumours with minimal invasion and exceptional precision. Russian President Vladimir Putin has called on his countrymen and women to take up sport and cast off the nation's image as unhealthy drunkards who are dying well before their time. 35 years ago, in a quiet suburb of London, the modern hospice movement was born. St Christopher's Hospice is still at the centre of the movement, setting the pace in research into pain and innovative ways of helping the terminally ill and the bereaved. And a recent study conducted on 2,000 women showed that those over 24 with no history of heart problems were at a slightly higher risk of having a heart attack if they were on oral contraceptives. But first, imagine preparing a crack pipe as part of a new addiction therapy program. The drugs are fake, but the cravings are real. This is ERP, Exposure Response Prevention, a rather unconventional therapy. 38-year-old alcoholic Elle begins her session with relaxation exercises. Then she repeats personalized mantras called cognitive scripts, which drum in the many reasons to quit.
If I continue to use, I will die.
If I continue to use, I will die.
Then it's the hard part. She's confronted with the drug which ruined her life. ERP flies in the face of conventional therapy, but according to these addicts, the only way to beat their drug demon is to literally face it head on. Counseling isn't always enough for alcoholics, and some need medication too. A new study has called into question whether the popular drug naltrexone, often prescribed to recovering alcoholics to suppress their cravings, really works. Research in the New England Journal of Medicine found that older men who drank heavily for over 20 years often didn't respond to the drug. All volunteers in the study, whether they received the drug or a placebo, underwent individual counseling and were encouraged to attend Alcoholics Anonymous, a key component in treatment. The National Institutes of Health is funding several additional studies on new medications, most of which target specific areas of the brain that respond to alcohol. And speaking of drugs, a new study concluded that a popular vitamin supplement can actually be bad for you. The American Medical Association has indicated that too much